Cancel culture against a black man. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I've explained to you that narcissists crop up everywhere. Certain places attract more than others. For instance, politics, show business, entertainment, sports, education, because there the prime aims can be catered to far more effectively than, say, other areas. But narcissists permeate everywhere. We're like Japanese knotweed. We get into all places, and it's difficult to make us go away, but not impossible, as you know from my work. I've explained in a series of videos about the way that narcissism has been permeating its impact upon what is perceived as the left, woke culture, cancel culture. The fact that certain people's views, which were once grounded in empathy, talking about inclusivity, talking about tolerance, talking indeed about empathy itself, have invariably been hijacked by narcissists who use those as tools to get to the prime aims, but do so unwittingly so. As you know from my work, narcissists need the prime aims: control, fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. Both unaware and aware narcissists need those things. Aware narcissists might describe them as something else. Unaware narcissists don't know that that's what they actually want, but everything, repeat, everything that they do when it involves another person, or the contemplation of another person, will involve the prime aims. You might think that person has bought you a bouquet of flowers because they're nice. The unaware narcissist may well believe that they have bought you some flowers because they are nice, but the genuine reason they have done it is to assert control over you by making you feel special and drawing fuel from you by way of your response. You peel back the interaction and you will find one or more of the prime aims lurking underneath each and every time. Accordingly, the narcissist will use absolutely anything to get those prime aims. Commonly, sex is one of the largest ways by which a narcissist will get to the prime aims, and you would do no worse than to read my book, Sex and the Narcissist, to understand more in that regard. Of course, there are lots of different ways to get to the prime aims: flattering you, bribing you with gifts, taking you to exciting places, triangulating you with other people and objects, giving you backhanded compliments, using physical violence, withdrawing from you, denying things, gaslighting you, telling you you're the most wonderful person in the world, revising history, bullying you, intimidating you. Lots and lots of different ways. There are different appearances that can be used. In some instances, it's to be a dictator, to be at the head of a totalitarian state, to be the head of an organization, such as an educational one. In some instances, it is there being the leader of an industry, leader of a business, being the founder of a business. In some instances, it is instilling oneself within academia and securing promotions to get to the top. In some instances, it's cloaking one in a shroud of intolerance, popularizing certain views and people, and scapegoating others. In other instances, it is trying to maintain that one should be inclusive, that one is fair, kind, believes in freedom of expression, although, as we repeatedly see, there are many instances where those that claim to engage in such behaviours are out-and-out hypocrites. And here we have another instance to help you understand about narcissism and the way that it has an invidious and insidious effect upon the world around you, whereby narcissists have permeated and penetrated the concept of controlling people through cancel culture. And I'm going to provide you with an example of this so that you can see that it ends up everywhere, even in the situation of a black man, who ordinarily you might think would be immune from cancel culture, being subjected to it. The article is about an individual called Siaka Massaquoi, who's an actor and a producer, and he's vice chair of Los Angeles County Republican Party. That strikes me as possibly a slightly thankless task, but there we are. He's been in the entertainment industry for over 15 years and can regularly be seen in Babylon Bee videos. The article explains, "We are all living through an intense period of geopolitical and societal turmoil, and although the landscape and momentum of the day can sway, I'd like to share an incredibly positive yet direly urgent message and frontline reporting on the escalating cultural war that's actively being waged against each and every one of us. Opposing this false and encroaching darkness is the light and power of the spiritual truth revival cascading worldwide, building with each passing day. This is a history-shaping clash that's been coined the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. As many of us are aware, there's a multi-front war being waged in America on millions of unsuspecting participants. Friends, brothers, sisters, mums, dads, sons and daughters. The attack is a relentless 24/7, 365 attack on biology, faith, psyche. The sophistication of the assault is like nothing seen before, and to ultimately win this war, there need not be a shot fired, for this is a battle for the mind, and ultimately the heart and soul of a man and of a nation. I've been intensely plugged into this cultural war for many years, and more recently I've been an active participant. The writer explains that as a 43-year-old black Christian conservative in the MAGA era, I've been targeted and harassed for my political views, and for simply exercising my First Amendment right to free speech. I was knowingly and unknowingly targeted by the Secretary of State of California and Instagram in 2020 for organising and participating in Recall Gavin Newsom events. My home was raided by 15-plus armed FBI agents in June of 2020, related to their Dragnet intimidation campaign directed at those that attended the January 6, 2020 rally in Washington, D.C. I have travel restrictions in the domestic United States. I am part of a high-priority list that the TSA enforces, and when I fly, I have to endure several additional layers of invasive security procedures. I was cancelled by Hollywood for protesting at Netflix HQ, opposing their over-sexualization of content geared towards children. At that time, I was also being featured on a promoted series on Netflix. I was defamed on the front page of the Los Angeles Times and accused of being part of a radical anti-vax faction that shut down and threatened a mass vaccination location at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. Let's just say, my social credit score isn't looking so hot. It's important to mention that I haven't always been a Christian conservative. I was raised in Chicago by a single mother, and with that I bought into much of the Democratic platform, dogma and ideology through my childhood and into my adult years through the Obama regime. Eventually I woke up to the con game that was being run on the people by the Democratic Party as part of the uniparty system, and at the same time I was solidifying my sobriety and finding my relationship with God. I'm often asked, where are we today in this culture war? As the full scope of the culture war is too convoluted and multi-layered to fully address in this article, I'm going to focus on the media big tech entertainment complex angle, which bleeds into every aspect of our lives. Like any war, there are distinct levels to this conversation, including our own military, the State Department and the Pentagon, along with big tech and big media, who are illegally deploying military-grade psychological warfare operations, fifth-generation warfare against the American people. Fifth-generation warfare is conducted primarily through non-kinetic military action, such as social engineering, misinformation, cyber attacks, along with emerging technologies such as AI and autonomous systems. The culture war is being wargamed, architected, funded and operated at the military-industrial complex level, which includes international intelligence agencies and their proxies, think tanks, charities, private endowments, etc. Their tactics are drawn directly from Saul Alinsky's infamous book, Rules for Radicals, including projecting their actions onto their enemies, inverting the truth, destabilizing and balkanizing the people, manufacturing distractions, demonizing, and the eventual imprisonment and or death of their political opponents. Now, pausing there, whether you necessarily agree with the political stance of this individual or not is neither here nor there. The point is that this individual has faced persecution and cancelling as a consequence of offering a different view. And, of course, what does a different view amount to? a threat to control. And therefore there are those individuals that wield particular power who naturally wish to remain in that position of power that see certain individuals on both sides of the political spectrum as a threat to control. And as a consequence of these individuals gaining more and more control, more wealth and more power, and having no room for tolerance despite often preaching that they do, what is happening is that there is an unrelenting, increasing stranglehold being adopted by my kind. My kind have always, of course, had involvement with power. Why? Because quite simply it allows us to get to the prime aims. But as society has shifted, whereby wealth becomes in the hands of fewer and fewer people and more of it, that many people can be affected by the provision of misinformation and disinformation over the internet, so that it in effect ousts old media to a considerable extent. That so many videos can gain traction only for people to later find out, or not even find out at all, that it doesn't even relate to the event that it's purportedly to do so. But people in this age of requiring an immediate fix, in a sense being fed a diet of narcissistic traits, are less likely to challenge information than they once were. Because their attention spans have dropped, because of that need for immediate gratification, they can't be bothered to read for long, or watch for long, or go away and unearth information themselves. They want to be spoon-fed. They want it short, simple and quick. Get to that dopamine hit. And our kind knows this. Our kind recognises that we can utilise this increasing preoccupation with non-narcissists, with diminished attention spans and a requirement for dopamine hits through instant gratification to our advantage. It enables people to be easier to control. Arm that also with the fact that our kind can then access social media on a wide scale, controlling the narrative through there, it becomes a playground for us. And in the same way that this individual found himself cancelled and attacked, the fact is that our kind can utilise the opportunity to silence people readily, swiftly, and widely, effectively. The article continues by explaining the enemy is pushing the envelope because they are, metaphorically, running out of cards to play. They are desperate because many of their plans have been outed, many of their leaders have been exposed, which undoubtedly increases the stakes of the winner-takes-all game. History indicates that they will continue with their British Empire philosophy and strategy of divide and conquer, progressively implemented under sociologist Cloward and Piven's strategy and policy to fundamentally transform America. The enemies of humanity are able to force-feed the public a widely unpopular agenda thanks to the coordination of the corrupt, Mockingbird, mainstream corporate media, primarily television, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, CNN, MSNBC and print media, WAPO, NYT, AP, Reuters, USA Today, and almost every printing press. Once again, this means that people are able to lay their hands on this. And who is it that wants to have that level of control? Why? My kind, of course. Once neutral small-town newspapers have been acquired by a larger company, or they've made the business decision to partner with the permanent bureaucracy or the deep state in order to stay in business, or they are aligned politically and philosophically and also benefit financially and get to work to enforce their agenda, the true weaponization of media. Again, what does the weaponization of media achieve? It allows the assertion of control. It allows the drawing of fuel. The article continues, we are also seeing in the recently released Twitter files the internal emails and hard evidence of the collusion of big tech and the highest levels of our intelligence agencies, FBI, CIA, et al., along with the media industrial complex, to censor, target, dox and destroy their political enemies, i.e. nullify those threats to control, and those deemed a threat to the establishment narrative, i.e. those that are deemed a threat to that need for control. The far-left agenda promoted by Hollywood and big tech, financed by the CCP, promotes a degenerative, offensive and ungodly worldview, and unless you've been in a coma or living under a rock, it has become utterly impossible to escape or avoid the endless propaganda that's being targeted at all of us at every possible turn. What is propaganda? Again, a means of asserting control over people on a widespread basis, also managing a facade and drawing fuel. Hollywood, big tech and big media can still shape the narrative, silence dissent, and ultimately brainwash the masses to kowtow to their agenda. So they continue to be dangerous. But that trend has changed in recent years with the explosion of alternative media. We've all witnessed firsthand what happens when you stand up to the assigned corporate narrative, i.e. the safety and effectiveness of the COVID vaccines, the ineffectiveness of masks and lockdowns, funding the Ukraine war, the events around January the 6th, the hypersexualization of our children and election transparency. But also remember, I make the point here, that those that advocate those things are also viewing the supposed effectiveness of the COVID vaccine as a threat to their own control, and therefore invariably advocate that there are issues with the safety and effectiveness of it also. You have a war being waged on two sides, but who is waging it? Who are the generals of it? Be it in terms of progressive or conservative, whether it's to the left or whether it's to the right, you'll find our kind on either side, each grappling with the other because they threaten one another's need for control, and then all of you are effectively caught in the middle. The pawns that are there, whose votes are to be won over as a consequence of our kind's need for the assertion of control. Here, a black individual found himself cancelled and has provided a detailed article, and I'm not going to go all the way through it because it's quite lengthy, but just to give you a flavour of what he's experienced. And of course, this article, make of it what you will in terms of whether you agree with it or whether you don't. Politically, that's not the issue. The point is these things are happening. The point is that people are being silenced in this way. That here, a black man has been cancelled or purported for that to occur. But what he misses out, and what this article misses out, is understanding who is truly behind all of this. Who it is who has that pathological need for control. The individuals that become bored easily and need something, anything, to make that go away, to find stimulation. Those individuals who operate with that grandiosity of wanting to affect entire countries and continents. Those individuals that have a nagging itch that must be scratched. Those that need that admiration and grandiosity, that worship, the recognition. Those that don't need it, but nevertheless want to play the games. The fact is that once again, to truly understand what's actually going on in relation to this culture war, you need to truly understand who is behind it. And it isn't the case of saying, oh, it's the elites, or it's the conservatives, or it's the lefties. It's in fact the narcissists and the psychopaths. Those that are the true believers. Those that are motivated to seek the prime aims, those that are motivated to alleviate the boredom, to play fast and loose with other people's lives, because that is what you're seeing. But once again, an article is detailed of this, that advances all of the observations that it does, singularly fails to recognise that the likelihood of him being cancelled was because he threatened somebody's sense of control, and therefore they needed to nullify it. Once again, if you start to understand narcissism and psychopathy, you'll understand its place in the world and why the world is as it is. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.